Are you a cop?
Don't worry about what I am, because I'm a state agent.
How far can you go dressing up like a police officer before you're charged with criminal personation? Recently, Jeremy Dewitte, owner of Metro State Services, a funeral and VIP escort business, appeared on the Dr. Phil show explaining his side of some criminal charges that he's facing.
He says he wants me to see his motorcycle up close to show me how it does not look like a police motorcycle.
Primarily what Metro State does is provide funeral escort services.
Repo, take this intersection and keep this under control.
In this video, we're going to discuss the Florida State Statute of false personation using Jeremy Dewitte's first arrest back in 1998 as an example case. Stick around, that's up next. If we haven't met yet, my name's Jeff Lauder. I'm an Orlando-based attorney, and I use my unique experience as a law enforcement officer to help people navigate their most complicated problems. If you're in Central Florida and you're looking to hire an attorney for a legal problem, give my office a call. We'll see if we can't help you out. Do you think Jeremy Dewitte should be incarcerated? Or do you think some type of rehabilitative service is more applicable? Interested in your comments on that down below. Jeremy Dewitte first hit my radar back in 2012 when he opened his company. At the time, I was working as a law enforcement officer in Central Florida, and we got intelligence bulletins on him. For the most part during my career, I worked midnights, overnights, so I wouldn't deal with him very much. I did run into some of his escorts while going to court, but I never had any legal interaction or any direct interaction with Jeremy himself. So let's take a look at his first arrest back in 1998 for false personation. At the time, he's 18 years old. It looks like he was working as a security guard. The allegation is that he stole gasoline using the powers of a police officer. At 7:30 in the morning, Dewitte drives up to a mobile gas station. He's driving a dark blue car, believe a Ford Taurus at the time. He tries to pump some gas into the gas pump, but it doesn't work. So the clerk looking out the window sees it. She thinks it's an undercover police car because it has a light in the window as well as a whip antenna in the back. So she activates the pumps from the inside, allowing him to pump the gas without paying in advance. After he gets done pumping the gas, he comes into the store. The clerk knows he's wearing some mirrored sunglasses as well as a badge on his belt. He tries to pay with a mobile gas station credit card. That credit card is declined and he has no other form of payment. That creates a problem because the clerk's not allowing him to leave. He says, "I'm a police officer, so I know you can't keep me here," which is not what you would say as a police officer, but nonetheless, different times, maybe you would say it then. They go back and forth, and he finally convinces them to let him go and that he'll return and pay later on. He never comes back. She calls the police, and that starts an investigation. OPD sends an officer out to the mobile gas station who takes this police report. A month later, the officer goes to Dewitte's residence to follow up. Takes an Orange County deputy with him. So it's probably outside of the city limits. Takes an Orange County deputy to carry jurisdiction. And they see that blue vehicle, what turns out to be a 1990 Dodge Shadow, parked in the driveway or in the area with a blue light in the window as well as a whip antenna on the back. Jeremy Dewitte is arrested without incident, but during the interaction, his stepdad comes out saying something along the lines, "I thought the mobile was the last one," suggesting that this has happened in multiple incidents over a period of time. And at the time, Orlando Police Department already had Mr. Dewitte listed as a suspect in another case. So in this case, he was charged with false personation as well as theft, petty theft of the gasoline. When we're talking about false personation, we're in Chapter 843, which is the obstruction of justice statute. So it's kind of one of those things that's broken down. They try to organize it, and any type of offense that you would think of an obstruction of justice would fall into this chapter. So Florida Statute 843.08, false personation. Now, the statute is broken down into two different parts. The first part's going to be listing all the different people that you can't falsely personate. And then the second part of the statute explains the second aspect of it, which is critical. A person who falsely assumes or pretends to be a firefighter, a sheriff, an officer of the Florida Highway Patrol, an officer of the
Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, an officer of the Department of Environmental Protection, or a fire or arson investigator of the Department of Financial Services, a probation officer, a deputy sheriff, a state attorney, an assistant state attorney, a statewide prosecutor, or an assistant statewide prosecutor, or a state attorney investigator, a coroner, a police officer, a lottery special agent or lottery investigator, a beverage enforcement agent, a school guardian, a security officer licensed under 493, any member of the Florida Commission on Offender Review, or any administrative aide or supervisor employed by the Commission, any personal representative of the Department of Law Enforcement, or federal law enforcement.
If you represent, if you dress up, or you act like any of these people, that's who we're talking about, and takes upon himself or herself to act as such, or to require any other person to aid or assist him or her in a matter pertaining to the duty of such officer, commits a felony of the third degree. So there's two different aspects here. First, you have to present yourself as someone listed in the statute, and then you have to take some type of action or do something or require someone else to do something. So it's the dress up like plus something else. And in this particular case, if we apply that something else, he used the power of the badge and his position to circumvent paying for gasoline. There's an upgrade if you are dressed and acting like a police officer listed in the statute, and while you're dressed like that, you commit another felony. It's an upgrade to a much more serious F2 felony. Now, petty theft of gasoline of $14 in this amount is not a felony. It's only a misdemeanor. So the crime of false personation is not upgraded here. Let's take a look at what the courts define as acting. Let's look at State versus Alicia to understand this statute a little bit better. Alicia is alleging that the false personation statute is unconstitutionally overbroad, but the court here really does a good job explaining what the requirements of the law are. Simply pretending to be a law enforcement officer is not criminal. However, someone who takes upon himself to act as such is criminal. The trial court found him guilty. His conduct rose to the level of criminal behavior, but the appellate court saying, well, listen, if it's unconstitutionally vague, then we might not be able to make that determination and the statute might be void in itself. So the court here looks at the constitutionality and tries to break down it for vagueness, for overbreadth, for under and over-inclusiveness. The court ends up ruling that the language in the statute's clear, that you can't falsely pretend to be a police officer, and leaves it at that. So that's what we are forced to deal with, which is fine. I think that's a decent explanation. Jeremy waives his Miranda rights, writes a confession, and eventually pleads to the crime of false personation. He's sentenced to a term of probation. While on probation, things get a little bit worse because he's now arrested again for having improper, illegal police lights in his vehicle, which violates his probation. He is sentenced as a result of the violation of probation to community control. And community control is just a much more strict form of probation. While on community control, he's arrested again for some other type of similar offense, police lights, false personation, something along those lines. And then the judge puts him away for a year. Gain time, you get 5 days per 30. And then if you get into a program, usually it's another 5 days, so 10 days per 30. The judge is encouraging that this guy get into a work program. They want to bring him back into conformance with society. But as we know, the jails generally don't do that. So Dewitte comes out of jail, now a product of the system. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Hit that subscribe button.